Samaniti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Bachani Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pastatari Shatani. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 23, entitled Devahuti's Lamentation. Today we're going to do 40 and 41, and 40 has no purport, so I will do that myself, and then we'll do 41 together. Vaishrambhake Surasena Nandane Pushpabadrake Manase Chaitrastaye Cha Sarime Ramaya Rata. Translation. Satisfied by his wife, he enjoyed in that aerial mansion not only on Mount Meru, but in different gardens known as Vaishrambhaka, Surasana, Nandana, Pushpabhadraka, and Chaitaratya, and by the Manasa Sarovara lake. Text 41. Please repeat. Brajishnu na vimanena. You can repeat anytime. Brajishnu na vimanena kama gena mahiyasa kama gena mahiyasa vaimanikan atasheta vaimanikan atyaseta charalokan yatanika karalokan yatanila brajishnu na vimanena kamagina mahiyasa Vaimanikan atasheta charalokan yatanila. Please repeat. Brajishnuna. Brajishnuna vimanena kamagina mahiyasa vaimanikanatasheta charalokan yatanila. Brajishnuna vimanena kamagina mahiyasa vaimanikan atasheta charalokan yatanila. Padrashina vimanena kamagina mahiyasa vaimanikan atasheta charalokan yatanila. Ladies? Rajishnuna Vimanena Kamagena Mahiyasha Vaimanikanatya Sheta Charalukanyatanika Tani Rajishnuna Vimanena Kamagena Mahiyasha Vaimanikanatya Sheta Charalukanyatanilaha Vajashrina Vimanina Brajishnuna, splendid. Vimanena, with the airplane. Kamagena, which flew according to his desire. Mahiyasa, very great. Vaimanikan, the demigods in their airplanes. Atyasheta, he surpassed. Charan, traveling. Lokan, through the planets. Yata, like. Anilaha, the air. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: he traveled in that way through the various planets as the air pauses uncontrolled in every direction, coursing through the air in that great and splendid aerial mansion, which could fly at his will. He surpassed even the demigods. Please repeat. He traveled in that way through the various planets as the air passes uncontrolled in every direction, coursing through the air in that great and splendid aerial mansion, which could fly at his will. He surpassed even the demigods. Purport. The planets occupied by the demigods are restricted in their own orbits. But Kardama Muni, by his yogic power, could travel all over the different directions of the universe without restriction. The living entities who are within the universe are called conditioned souls. That is, they are not free to move everywhere. We are inhabitants of this earthly globe. We cannot move freely to other planets. In the modern age, man is trying to go to other planets, but so far he has been unsuccessful. It is not possible to travel to any other planets because by the laws of nature, even the demigods cannot move from one planet to another. But Kardama Muni, by his yogic power, could surpass the strength of the demigods and travel in space in all directions. The comparison here is very suitable. The word yata anila indicate that as the air is free to move anywhere without restriction, so Kardama Muni unrestrictedly traveled in all directions of the universe. Om Jnanitamidandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmanitam Jena Tasmai Sigurim Gum Gurodivachalam Pankam Langayate Girimadipamande Sigurum Dinatan Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanyeshwaram. So, as explained here by so nicely by Srila Prabhupada, we have certain restrictions in travel within the universe. It's not like Star Trek, where you can beam someone up and down, or you can use some, push a few buttons, and you're going at some light speed. That is not the case. That's not the reality, as Prabhupada points out here. That everywhere there are restrictions, even in our human society, and even in the animal kingdom. Our experience is that there are certain restrictions in travel. You can't even go to another country, right, without certain papers. You can't just pass through. There's so much controversy now in the world, not just in America, but in the world, about immigration. How people are trying to go from one place to another, for whatever reason, legitimate or illegitimate. They're all trying to travel, and they're trying to make a better life, which is everyone's right. We can't say, just like we see in the world these days, that you can try to, by your material means, restrict with walls and chains and barbed wire and electric fences and guns, or by politicking. It's not a natural course. There has to be qualification, certainly, just as here we're reading how Kardama Muni, as Prabhupada first points out, how the demigods, even by qualification, they live in certain places. They can't themselves go from this place to that place. From Urdvam Gachanti Sattvasta Madhye Tishtani Rajasa. The Bhagavad Gita explains that one has to have a certain qualification to travel to a certain place. If you want to go to the higher planets, to a higher region, just like in this society, in this world, in our experience, you have to have some qualification to get there. You can't just by some material means, like who was it, Ravana, who by his material means thought that he could build a stairway to heaven. It doesn't work like that. Those are not the laws of nature. The laws of nature are such that one has to have a quality of life, a quality of consciousness, a purity of consciousness in order to get from some hellish region. Adhogachanti tamasa. You may live in some hellish region. You want to go to a higher region, madhye, then you have to have some qualification. So similarly here, Prabhupada is pointing out that the planets are occupied, that are occupied by the demigods, are restricted by their own orbits. So everything has a structure to it. It's not a chaos, as again some ideas are out there that the universe is a chaotic existence, that everything is happening from some explosion or whatever crazy idea may be there. But there's some order to it, and there's some system. And that system, that order has been established by the personality of Godhead. So much so that even the demigods, who are quite qualified in so many different ways. They're also restricted by their own orbits. But the example here is given of Kardama Muni, who by his yogic power, and this is not just some mystic qualification, but because he's, as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, yoginam api sarvesham, that those who are devotees are of the highest highest yogic qualification, and are able to go beyond or transcend the limitations of the material world. Just like Krishna, when he wanted to go to Vaikuntha to see Mahavishnu, was it? He took Arjuna in his chariot. There was some qualification. Arjuna had to have some qualification to be able to withstand that ride. It was quite a ride, described in the Krishna book, how he would travel through the different layers of creation and finally attaining Vaikuntha. So there was some certain qualification. He was enabled or qualified being with the personality of Godhead, and by his mercy he also could travel. Just as here Kardama Muni, by his yogic power, could travel all over the universe in different directions without restrictions. So devotees are able to do this, and we're understanding that because Kardama Muni was a devotee of the Lord, he was qualified to do such a thing. So there has to be some qualification. The living entities who are within the universe are called conditioned souls. That is, they are not free to move everywhere. Again, we have certain limitations. You may try to make some material arrangement, build some spaceship, and go off into outer space. But the qualifications of the liberated souls are of a whole different nature. They don't have those kinds of restrictions, as Prabhupada points out here, that Kardama Muni, by his yogic power, could surpass the strength of the demigods and travel in space in all directions. Of course, this is something that the materialists are aspiring for. They want to go off into different worlds and think that by their material arrangements, they can make some arrangement for sense enjoyment. It's possible by the practice of mystic yoga that one can gradually elevate oneself and come to such places, but it is not it's not a permanent arrangement. Even you go to the higher planets, you're only there for a short period of time. It's all relative. It's a very short period of time. And just like if you may get some paperwork and you go to a distant place, you can only stay there for a certain amount of time. There are certain restrictions. Oh, you can only have a 6-month or a 5-month or whatever it is, 5-year. You can only stay there for a certain amount of time in the material world. What to speak of going to the higher regions? So one has to have some qualifications. Here, Kardama Muni was certainly qualified. We can imagine how qualified he was, that he was able to travel in all these directions. Can you imagine the position of the personality of Godhead, right? Yata Yogeshwara Krishna. Krishna is the master of all mysticism. He's the master of all mystics. And everything he does, and wherever he is, whether it's with him by himself or with his devotees, as is explained in Bhagavad Gita, there's all opulence, victory, purity, and morality. So everything is there. there's nothing lacking. So this is the difference between those who are of the mundane consciousness, whose idea is to enjoy by their austerities. But it's Sakalaya Shanta, the Chaitanya Charitamrita explains that they're never peaceful. No matter they become very expert in their austerities and their practices, there's no peace. Whereas on the other hand, those who are engaged in devotional service and those who may pass from this world to the next, there's a whole different experience. Just as we were hearing this morning, Srila Prabhupada was pointing out how the passing of a devotee from this earthly plane to the spiritual world is compared to lightning and illumination. There's a very nice conversation Prabhupada had with a disciple in which that very same conversation was going on. And the disciple was asking Prabhupada, will we recognize you in the spiritual world? And Prabhupada just smiled very nicely and said that Krishna has made the perfect arrangement. That for the devotee, the passing is just like a lightning. It's quick, and there's an immediate illumination. And when one goes to that place, the devotees, Prabhupada very nicely described this. It's very interesting how the devotee will be lying down on the ground, and when he opens his eyes, the first thing he sees is the face of the spiritual master. And the spiritual master will grab his hand and take him to the hand of Krishna. So it's a whole different travel. It's a whole different experience than we see in this mundane world, where everything is so restricted and unpleasant. It's hellish. But in the association of the personality of Godhead and being engaged in devotional service, as here we're reading so nicely about Kardama and Devahuti and how they traveled throughout the universe in so many places that even the demigods could not go. And again, this is all because one is situated in devotional service. And so if you have the proper qualification, the proper paperwork, you can go from this place to that place without restriction. And that again is only because one is situated properly. So this wonderful pastime of Kardama and Devahuti is very instructive in so many different ways. That those who are engaged in devotional service, they become qualified, and not those who are of a mundane consciousness. Savas was pointing out this morning that today is what was the date? Akshaya Tritiya. So Akshaya means what? To never decreasing, to never decrease. So it's a time to begin something. It's a very auspicious time to begin something, some endeavor. And so it's actually considered one of the most auspicious days in the Hindu calendar. It's also the appearance day of Parasuram. And we know what his business was. His business was to start a new beginning by eliminating all of the sinful Kshatriyas. So it's a good time to begin something new and fresh, and by doing it in a very auspicious way, that there's no that it means there'll be an increase or a positive success. So it's good for us now that we are in this time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to engage in some very auspicious, the most auspicious activity, and that is the Sankirtan movement. To some or other, give people a chance to do something auspicious and make their lives successful. That is the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we're getting some special opportunity on such an auspicious day. So our purpose should be to engage the conditioned souls so that they can make their lives successful, and that will help us and help all others. Any questions or comments? Siddhas Prabhu?
Thank you, Naikatma. Nice class. I was just curious when I was reading the purport that what is it that encourages or entices the living entity to want to go to another planet? I mean, it's kind of like almost counterproductive. What would be the purpose of it? I mean, you go there and what will you do? In other words, I'm just, like the yogi, and such as Kardama Muni, he could do that. He could go anywhere he wanted to. But in terms of us as living entities in this conditioned life, what encourages us to want to really go to another planet? For what reason?
Well, I think it's just like why do you want to go to California? Or why do you want to go to America? Why do you want to go to Hawaii? Or why would you want to go to India? It's all based on different levels of gratification, in my mind, whereas the living entity is constantly searching for some sort of gratification. Well, I didn't get it in such and such place, and maybe I can get it in such and such place. Or maybe I can tweak it a little bit and think I can get something more in this place. So it's a constant bhukti mukti siddhi. They're never happy. The sense enjoyers, those who are looking for even liberation, and even the siddhis, the perfected yogis, they're always striving. They're always looking for something more. Some so-called better arrangement. Just like, again, we're looking for some better situation here. Why do people risk their lives to get to another place? Because they think that it will be better for them. So that's the constant dilemma, the constant mentality of the living entity who's conditioned by material nature. He's constantly wishing and hoping that, well, this is going to be a little bit better. Well, maybe I should, this first wife is not so good. Maybe I should get 2 or 3 more. Or maybe I should get a different car. Or maybe I should get this thing or that thing, right? Maybe I should get a different kind of haircut. This one looks pretty cool. That one's, it's strange, but that's the mentality in my mind. And one will never be satisfied until one comes to the platform of devotional service. Archita Prabhu?
When Prabhupada was here, there was a new devotee who one day told Prabhupada that he was going to go travel. He hadn't been initiated yet, was still a bhakta. So Prabhupada asked him, why? He said, well, I want to see different places. And Prabhupada said, why? He said, when you go, you'll find that they're doing the same things, eating, sleeping, mating, independent, maybe in a little different way, but it's the same things. The same things that are happening here will be happening there.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's motivated by being unhappy. There's another example. In New York, there was this guy. He was an international arms dealer. He was from the Middle East, but he had a residence in New York. He lived in a high-rise building. He owned 3 floors. His apartment consisted of 3 floors in that building. But when they caught him, he was restricted. They put in one of those ankle things, monitors, and he couldn't leave his apartment. They showed pictures of his apartment, wonderful place, 3 stories, servants and all that. But because he couldn't leave, he was just like chafing at the bit. He was upset. So we want to feel free. This is the motivation. We want to feel free, that we can go wherever we want, do whatever we want. And if you put any restriction on the living entity, then they feel upset. That's the motivation.
Yeah, it's just like, it's not hard to fast, but when Ekadasi day comes, it's really hard. Isn't it? That's been my experience. On some days, I don't feel like eating today, or I could pass, whatever. But as soon as Ekadasi comes, or a fast day comes, the mind turns in a different way. Oh my God, this is Ekadasi. Nirjala? No. Half a day fast? Not possible. It's fast till sunset or moonrise? No. It's just a mental concoction. And unless until one gets to the process of bhakti, whereby those desires are controlled and dovetailed in the proper way, and one eventually, of course, they become purified and detached from it, as Kardama Muni will prove later on in this pastime, how he traveled all over the place. And even expanded himself into 9 forms to increase that enjoyment with Devahuti. Prabhupada gets into some pretty incredible purports later on here. But then he finally pulls back and sees, okay, it's finished. Now I have to go on to something greater.
There's like a Chaitya sannyas, right? The Chaitya sannyas is one who stays in one place and never leaves. He stays in that place and just performs a sadhana. And it takes a lot of self-control.
Yeah, a lot of self-control.
Prabhu, I have a question. Question is, you were describing about the qualities. The one has to be qualified. And the general understanding is that, like from going to one place to another place, there is an authority who puts restrictions and laws for a person to enter. So at one point you were mentioning that Krishna and Arjuna were traveling through the universe and they were qualified. So then I thought, hold on, I was thinking in my mind, he actually is the source of all, qualities for everyone. So my question will be, maybe you can expand in this, for my understanding, that who's going to decide for Krishna that he's qualified to enter?
Who's going to decide?
Who will decide for him? That's Arjuna and Krishna are going through the universe you were mentioning.
Krishna decides.
And then, exactly, so he says, but you use the word They like just like Arjuna and Krishna, they were qualified. Uh-huh. So then
Arjuna became qualified by Krishna.
Arjuna became qualified by
Yes.
Krishna. Thank you.
Yeah, so there has to be some authority. The government authorizes for you to travel to this place, that place. The Supreme Lord authorizes the conditioned souls, the living beings,
Yes.
to go from this place to that place. And of course, he doesn't have to directly be there. He has his agents also who are helping him, like Yamaraj and other deities. So it's, but ultimately the buck stops with Krishna. Yatra Yogeshwaro Krishna.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Srila Prabhupada. Oh, Maharaj, please.
Thanks for interesting class, Prabhu. I just wanted to make one point, and that is, and I think we've all experienced this, that even if we are attracted by or to something which is unique, novel, almost unbelievable, and very spirited, very almost hard to believe. Even if we are attracted and we receive that and see it, what happens is that after a while we begin to grow bored by these things which initially stimulated us and enticed us and attracted us. And then after a while it's just the same as anything else. And that's the nature of material activity or material objects. They bore. They don't give you permanent satisfaction. And that's the difference that's being made in this book, that the satisfaction that Srila Prabhupada, which is being stated here, spiritual pleasure, spiritual joy, spiritual satisfaction, spiritual fulfillment is something that remains, it stays, and that is because it is of God. It is of God's nature. So therefore we should strive only for spiritual or divine attraction, and not just for its uniqueness, but because it is of God, which means the greatest.
I was reading one very nice analogy about by Srila Prabhupada, and he was talking about religions and the benefits that one should derive from them. Ultimately, of course, is pure God consciousness. And he was comparing it to milk. That milk is there within every religion. But the test or the what's the word? The test or the process that one has to understand is how to extract that milk. So certainly everyone, all traditions, there may be so many in the world who are giving some kind of milk. They're offering some knowledge. But how to extract that we can find especially through the process of Bhakti Yoga. The process of Bhakti Yoga is so nice that whatever condition of life you may be in, it's such that it knows how to extract the essence out of one's work and the purpose of one's work. So there's nothing in comparison to the process of Krishna consciousness, certainly. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.